YouTube and Patreon, welcome back to another Fate Strange Fake video. In this one, we're going to be checking out what you need to know before watching the goated anime Fate Strange Fake. We're currently actually waiting for the live stream of episode 1. It's been 3 hours so far. We're live on Twitch. Check me out over there. And of course, full uncut reactions only on Patreon. Let's get into it.
I'm just over here giving a
shout out Psy IV, by the way.
Innovation for that incredible, that impeccable adaptation that I just saw. If you haven't seen already, the Strange Fate pilot did come out. They actually did a switch up on us. They did the dub first, so it would be the one.
Oh yeah, he's talking about that
at Expo. And surprisingly, because I'm so used to watching.
Oh my god, that's probably what's gonna happen today as well. They're gonna give us the dub. So are you telling me I gotta rewatch that? I'll probably like do it for fun in my own time or something, just to experience the sub, the Japanese. But dub is gonna be great either way. We did check out the dub, like compared to last night. Turns out everything was amazing. Peak 10 out of 10 English dub, except for 2 characters. You won't believe it. It was Gilgamesh and Enkidu. Those are the only 2 that I personally thought could have been better. Everyone else was 10 out of 10 peak.
So when I heard I had to watch the dub, I was like, oh. But surprisingly, it was so good that even the dub cleared. I'm like, this is crazy. The dub is actually really good so far.
Man, they keep replaying these. Okay, I'm gonna mute for this one. I'll fall.
That I'm gonna have to go back and watch the sub later on today. It's still not out yet. So many things to get into, so many things to address. First and foremost, and this is something that I already knew was coming, they did finally announce the fact that there will be a full anime.
And today is the first episode, dude.
Just doing a
first
pilot.
episode.
Listen, man, nobody's doing 8 novels, and it's not finished, by the way. We're 8 novels in, a manga, and a pilot to not do the actual show. That would be insane. And I saw people wondering why they did it this way. Marketing. It's simple marketing, guys. Marketing 101.
Create the hype.
Up hype, get people invested, give them a little bit, but not too much.
They're geniuses, man. They know what they're doing.
As the adaptation goes, I love it. Everything about it, front to back. The actors, the animation, the directing. I know it's still the prologue, so you can't give them too much credit too early, but so far they're doing a fantastic job. It was so good to see all the people finally being brought to life, and we'll get more into that here in a minute. Pray Lottie,
I'm so
Jack
excited for the first episode.
Waver, everybody, man. Gil and Kidu, my guy Reeves. Yo, I'm rocking with Reeves hard. Faldeus, he was actually a lot more animated than I thought he'd be, and I feel like this really livens up my expectation of his character, because the adaptation shows a more playful side to his character. I feel like Tsubaki, that's the little girl. If you don't know, her servant.
What video is this? This is everything you need to know before watching Fate Strange Fake.
Black swarm that you see. That's
I'll be resting for a bit, sure, man.
He's in the writer class. Now, I've yet to cover it on the channel, but we will be getting around to that, because it does a lot of crazy things in the novel that pertains to everything that's going on. And if you were paying attention, it already started.
Thanks for the follow, King.
But you would probably have to know to have noticed. This is a spinoff, so it's not written by the original Fate Stay Night creator. He was only the supervisor. It's written by Narita, who is also the author of titles like Bakano and Durarara. So before I get into everything, the first question that everybody keeps asking is whether or not they can watch the show. What do I need to get into it? I've never watched any of the Fates. Do I need to go back and watch the Fates? Look, and like I was saying in the Discord.
Okay, look, for this one, I feel like you don't have to. It's not like a must. For example, watching Heaven's Feel, you kind of you have to watch EBW, right? But for this one, same with Apocrypha, you could just like turn it up and enjoy. But I would say Strange Fake is a low-key the same way as Apocrypha, but the more you know, the better it'll be in terms of like your experience. Like, it's just gonna hit different. You're gonna recognize characters. You're gonna have more information. It'll remind you of a lot of things as well. So it's just gonna hit different. That's literally what it is.
Do I need to go back and watch the Fates? Look, and like I was saying in the Discord, you can watch it without seeing any other face. I feel like it does a real good job at explaining itself without having the need to look at anything prior. But at the same time, you should be aware that it builds upon a lot of things that's happened before. And one of the biggest things about Strange Fate is all the callbacks. As a matter of fact, looking at this one episode, pretty much every scene has a callback to another Fate or another.
Right, like we got Case Files on Melowy, we got the Babylonia, you know, relationship with Gil and Enkidu that hits even different now. It's a lot of stuff, man. Of course, we got, you know, Flat that we only saw from Case Files, at least to my knowledge.
Another Type Moon work. And I do mean literally every scene. You don't gotta know it, but it really brings out the full potential of the show to know
well
at
said.
least some of it. Because Fate prides itself a lot on the callbacks and the Easter eggs. They're all over the place. So while we're on that, we'll get into one of the ones that I keep seeing that really surprises me, because I thought that we already been through this, so it really shouldn't be that big of a shocker. But if you haven't seen Heaven's Feel or Prisma, at least you probably wouldn't know. So the guy at the end, I seen people ask who that was.
Zelrech.
That's Zelrech. Zelrech is one of the people that helped found the clock tower, the place where all the mages go to study, where everybody goes to gain political power and declare dominance in the mage society. He had a founding part in that because he is one of the oldest mages that there is. Mind you that the clock tower was founded around 500 AD. The story takes place in 2009, just to give you an idea of how old this guy actually is. So Zelrech has been around for a long time. He's the original wielder of the Kaleidosticks that you see in Prisma Ilya, the wielder of the gem sword that you see in Fate Stay Night Heaven's Feel. He's a wielder of the second true magic, one of the strongest magics in the verse, and the same person that took on the Crimson Moon in the past. The Crimson Moon being the father of the dead apostles, or in this case, the father of all vampires. So believe it or not, he's a really huge character. You see him discussing whether or not he should get involved, and he really doesn't want to, because he knows that putting his hand on the war will change the sequence of the way that things are supposed to be. So this time around, he's just gonna watch how things play out from the dark. And the reason that you see this sort of kaleidoscope and these rainbow colors and mirrors in the background is because that is the basis, or at least one of the bases of his true power. He's the one said to have created all his weapons. And
that also reminds me of that one weapon in Heaven's Field that Rin uses in the third movie when she's fighting Sakura. Literally the same exact thing. The mirrors, the colorfulness.
For so long, he himself has a form of
literally his weapon.
And then he's one of the oldest mages that there is. So by extension, he's extremely strong.
He has red eyes too. He's got the Sharingan.
You know, this guy has the power to get energy from parallel timelines, hop timelines. That's why he's able to isolate himself from the rest of time. The way that you see in the show, he's a time and space connoisseur. And at a certain point, he was an apprentice of Solomon, the king of magecraft. Yes, that's Solomon. And if you heard Faldeas talk about the Makiri, the Ainsburns, and the Tosikas, he was one of the people that helped start the Grail ritual. He worked alongside those families, as we saw in Heaven's Field. That's the reason that he's looking over this one now. We even get an ORT drop when he was talking about the spider, and this is long before.
Bro, what is this spider thing, by the way? Because he even talked about it in the last, towards the ending of the special. He mentioned the spider. What is that spider? I don't think I've ever seen that before. Oh, it's a Lost Belt 7 timeline. Apocalypse Beast. Don't worry about it. Okay.
7 was even thought of, and the guy that he was talking to on the phone was a former.
Oh, ORT. I remember that now. Because we did watch a video about the Lost Belts and everything, mainly like, you know, the different concepts and stuff, and they did show different types of things, like beasts and stuff, right?
A church member turned dead apostle, Alcatraz. So you see him flipping through the book. My guy didn't even touch the book. I can do it just with my mind. And that just further goes to show how much of a hold that he has on these powers. But he flips through the book and he turns to a page with this girl with blonde hair, and you see her more towards the end. Like I said in the trailer before, this is Ayaka, or at least a reimagining of Ayaka. So Ayaka is the OG protagonist from Fate Prototype. Fate Prototype is pretty much the basis for Fate Stay Night. It's what Fate Stay Night was supposed to be.
They've been putting this loop on for like so long. I'm sick of it.
There ended up being a prototype fragment that came out around 2014 where
just give me the episode.
The main character. But basically, she's the original Shiro. It was supposed to be her as the main character and the male King Arthur. That's how it was set up originally. And then when Stay Night got finalized, Nasu ended up going along with Shiro and changing King Arthur into a female, which is where we got Artoria.
dang.
So that's where she comes from. But the whole point
she
of
looks
her character
scary.
is that it's supposed to be an actual reimagining. So we don't know if that's her or not, especially considering that while she does look the same, she has blonde hair. The original Ayaka was supposed to have dark hair. And if you listen to her lines, she even brings this up, saying that I'm not going to partake in what you guys want me to be a part of. So what's the difference between this Grail War and the ones that we've had before? Well, the basis for the things like Unlimited Blade Works, Fate Zero, Heaven's Feel is that all of them took place in the same location, and that's where it all started. Fuyuki, which is in Japan.
This one's in the
Fate
US
Zero
of A.
took place in 1994. That was the 4th Grail War. And then Fate Stay Night took place in 2004. That was the 5th Grail War. But this war, on the other hand, takes place a couple of years afterwards. It's in 2009, and instead of being in Fuyuki, Japan, it's over in the West in the United States, in a city called Snowfield, Nevada Snowfield. And I've seen people say, what's all this talk about this being an alternate timeline to Stay Night? So the thing about the Strange Fate timeline is that it's a lot like the Fate Extra timeline. And I know people might see a lot of things that try to make it super confusing. It's really not confusing at all. Think about it like this. The gist is that this takes place in the alternate timeline from Fate Stay Night. Fate Zero, UB-Dub, Fate Route, Heaven's Feel, all of that. So it considers that those events happen, but this timeline is operating on its own spectrum. It's like one timeline you go out to eat, the other timeline you stay home and you cook for yourself. Everything that happened prior to both is still the same, but in the second timeline, you just made a deviation. And so everything that occurred afterwards will be deviated in its own way.
That makes so much more sense.
Strange Fate. Now that Prelati and them has gotten involved, it can't be the
same. So everything is still relevant in this timeline. Like everything before did actually in fact take place. It's just that after, in this anime now, everything afterwards is not the same as, I guess, the other Stay Night timeline and everything. But we still have to acknowledge it in this timeline.
For example, I'm sure that you've seen a bunch of characters that you're familiar with, and they still exist, but they might be doing something completely different, or they might still fall in line with what's been established in the prior series. Waver, for example, if you've seen Fate Zero, and this is what I mean by the callbacks, Waver started off as just a student, and through the nature of him surviving the Grail War, he ended up taking the position of El Malloy, the same position of the...
Is that how you say it the whole time? I've been saying it El Malloy. Is it El Malloy?
El Malloy. The same position of the person that he took the catalyst from, Kenneth. He ended up taking that position, the whole time. And we ended up finding that out at the end of Unlimited Blade Works. It was an Easter egg when Shiro passed by him in the clock tower. And you see that Waver is grown up, even more intelligent than he was before, more resourced than he was before. I brought up the fact...
Thank you for the 1 bit, Beluga.
That he's taught his own class.
My pronunciation is correct too. Okay,
later on in the series, it's gonna get so crazy, bro. Because you gotta think, if you've seen everything up until this point, you've literally grown with this character. Especially if you've seen these series air on TV. That
Case Files El Malloy, still one of the greatest Nasu works I've ever seen, dude. I loved it. It also brought me so much closer to Waver and got to learn more about him, and he's just so cool as a grown-up, man. I mean, I still liked him when he was young in FZ, Fate Zero, the whole Iskander thing. Best duo in that entire anime till this day. And then the grown-up version too, when he refers back to it, almost made me cry with the interaction. Peak show.
I mean that you've known about this way back in
season 2 would go hard.
But it's just really nice to see that in a society where money is king.
Wait a minute. Is there like a manga for this that is still ongoing? I might actually consider reading it. No cap, because I really enjoyed it so much.
Where lineage is king, connections are king.
Like maybe in my own free time.
Of normalcy like Waver still able to shimmy his way to the top and do such a good job that even the people that studied under him have been acknowledged to have some of the greatest potential that the clock tower has ever seen. If you notice in the scene, we got a cameo from Gray. Gray is more so like the apprentice of Waver. She plays the lead in
I
the
love Gray.
Elroy Case File series. There's about 10 volumes on that. There's a ton of lore to go around. That's yet another spinoff. Again, you don't gotta know it, but if you do, it's huge. It was really nice to see her. But more specifically, when you talk about potential, people like Vlad Escardos, who Waver is also a teacher of now. He also has his right hand by the name of Sveen. We didn't get to see him here, but they're often shown together, and the dynamic between them is exactly what a lot of people in the audience might feel for his character. Like, I'm seeing a lot of people say that they already don't like Flat. He's too bubbly. He's too friendly.
I enjoyed him. He was great.
So serious. He just seems like that character. Listen, man, I'm gonna let people say what they want to say. You can talk down on Flat all you want to, but just know I'm gonna need you to keep that same energy later on. But beyond that, Flat has shown up before. If you've seen Apocrypha, he did make a cameo there when they were explaining things at the start of that Grail War as well. One thing that I really liked about the scene, and it's so amazing to see, is the callback and the flashback of Waver getting his catalyst to summon Iskander. And I mean, same hallway, same position, everything. Back in Fate Zero, Waver had absolutely no way to get a servant at that point in time. So when he was tasked to deliver the catalyst that his teacher had brought in that would summon Alexander the Great, he stole it and used it for himself, and that's how he ended up in the war and lasted all the way to the end of Phase Zero. But what I really like about it is that he saw himself in Flat, that same kid that just really wanted a chance, but they didn't have anything current to get into the
curious
war.
Kid.
And he thought about how he took the catalyst. So instead of just taking what should have been delivered to him and being some sort of gatekeeper, he decided to just let Flat have it. Little did he know,
crazy.
Flat moves fast. That man took that catalyst and made a flight.
Flat moves fast. I like that.
And the crazy thing about it is, it wasn't even supposed to be a catalyst. Flat was hinting at the idea of summoning Napoleon. And yes, we do have Napoleon Bonaparte. If you haven't been keeping up with FGO, he's already a spirit himself. Yet another servant we can add to the should have been summoned list. The whole scene is just wild. The scenes between him and Jack the Ripper, perfect. Absolutely perfect.
I love that scene.
Going back into Fate Apocrypha, if you've seen Jack the Ripper thus far, what you know of him or her, he was turned into a lowly, still followed the basis of being Jack the Ripper, this amalgam of identities that nobody was really sure of. But in the case of Apocrypha, it was the amalgam of the unborn children that were slain, and then those unborn children would collectively come out to be the lowly Jack the Ripper. In Strange Fate, they do a completely different take, and again, one that I feel is way more.
Again, it's because we never knew what Jack the Ripper, like, we don't know the identity, and that's also another, like, I guess, factor in why his servant would just die, and you know, we'll never win with this servant because nobody knows the identity. Who knows, maybe they could do something crazy and just actually like flip the switch. But it's very cool how every time Jack the Ripper is introduced in some way, it's something totally different because it's based off a concept, not the person themselves.
Or accurate, where since we never knew exactly who Jack the Ripper was, and that's something that he mentions in the pilot, he can pretty much turn into not just anybody, but for the most part, anything that he wants. You see him turn into the girl,
and a bird,
turn into the police officer, and by the end of the show, you see that he's turned into a watch just for the sake of doing so, just for the sake of showing off his power.
Wait, I missed that.
And that's just a few things that he's capable of. Really digging his voice acting, especially when he announced himself in the same way. It just felt extremely ominous, and that's kind of how the embodiment of Jack the Ripper should feel. It should feel ominous. It should feel mysterious. And not exactly something that you could weigh out. Now, for most people, those qualities would probably run somebody mad or scare them off. But since Flat is already out of his mind, he just takes it as another day.
He's just
he's so eccentric that he thinks nothing of this.
He's an idiot,
feels like
but a smartass at the same time. He's just
for them both. Then we got Orlando. Dumas and my girl
God.
Prelati, the criminal mastermind. You hear me?
Prelati. That's a cool name though, Prelati.
I really like the dialogue between Prelati and Orlando. It's exactly how it's supposed to be. Little bit censored, but that's fine. I do get what they mean, and it's an adaptation, so it's cool. I feel like the person that's playing Dumas really nailed it. If you don't know, Dumas is the caster. That is the servant of the police chief. Alexander Dumas is the author that wrote Edmond Dantes. So on top of us having Edmond as a servant from FGO, we also have the person that wrote him too. He wrote The Three Musketeers, and he also wrote The Count of Monte Cristo. And what you'll see in the adaptation is that it's taken this concept of plagiarism and given.
So this character can possibly use Edmond Dantes' noble phantasm, his abilities, I guess?
Him the ability to create pseudo noble phantasms at will. So what he's done is that he's helped the police chief Reeve, reinforcing the entire Clan Calatin police force by giving them pseudo noble phantasm weapons, and that way they can fight on a scale where even they could pose a threat to a servant in their mass numbers. I can't wait till we get to that scene.
That is,
oh my goodness,
that's gonna be
bro.
crazy.
You know, I was actually trying to calculate how far we could possibly get, considering that it was just a pilot. But now that I know that they've covered what they've covered, it was an hour long, so that's about 3 episodes in and of itself. The time that you see Clan Calatin in action really isn't that far from now, but it's far enough where it'll be somewhere around season 2. And that's just saying that the basis is the run-of-the-mill. They do 12 episodes for one season, 12 episodes for the next season. But who's to say how they do it? If you remember Babylonia, they just did 21 episodes for that outright. That was a completely different scheme as to how studios do it normally. And it turned out great. So whatever they decide to do,
Babylonia
just know that it's not far from here.
Show.
And there's going to be some incredible things that work. Really like the argument that Prelati makes about good and evil. How she mentions that it's just way easier to be the bad guy because you can just make the justification for it. But then again, you can say the same thing about being the good guy.
Hero.
So she really tramples on the idea of people being morally just, and she kind of trolls Orlando about him quote unquote being
a gaslighter. That's what she is.
When they're all in cahoots for the war together. If you guys missed my Prelati video, she's one of the few people from Strange Fate that I've already done. Covered her whole story up until about at least the 6th or 7th novel. She's the reason that everything is going on the way that it's going to happen now. She's the reason behind the Fuyuki system being copied. She actually took from the 3rd and the 4th war and weaved it all together and made her own idea of the war.
She's the one who created all this?
In there, Bazookan was on her head. Bunch of twists and turns happening, some of which that even she wasn't prepared for. So now there's going to be double the amount of servants taking part in it. So everything that the character Faldeas was talking about at the beginning, you'll come to find that they're all in it together. Reeve, Prelati, Faldeas. Faldeas just works behind the scene for the US government, but they have their behind the scenes relationship going as well. We got Jester and my girl No Name, and you can already see that this is one of the many deviations that this war presents to the audience. The moment that Jester tries to woo No Name, No Name just says nope, and she immediately takes his life and everybody else in the room for thinking that they could just override her and force her to do anything that she doesn't want to do, as well as go against her beliefs. We've covered her a little bit in the Every Hassan video. Everybody in this war is broken, by the way. It's going to be an extremely good time. But you'll see that once she took Jester's life, he immediately comes back up and he uses the revolver effect in his chest to shapeshift into a different form. And that's because he has multiple of these forms that he can turn into. The mage that he summoned her in.
That is such a cool concept as well.
The second form is as well. The blood that you see fill up at the bottom of the room, and it's just flooding all of the corpses of the mages that were supposed to be on his side. That's kind of showcasing his species. Jester is in fact a dead apostle, one of the strongest dead apostles that we've seen. So what he was doing beyond being completely insane is he's just absorbing all of the remnants of those people that she fried in the background through his dead apostle ways. You know, as a dead apostle, he's a vampire. They they can't get enough of blood and flesh. As you can see, he has this infatuation with No Name that really pleases the pinnacle of his desires. It's kind of like the Gil and Saber thing. I want you more because I can't have you. It's kind of that weird type of relationship. So you see a lot of that throughout
They're
the
both
lore,
insane.
but it doesn't go the same way at all. No Name is not going for that in the slightest. And then we got the two goats, Enkidu and Gilgamesh, alongside their masters, Tine, and the master of Enkidu is the wolf. And this stems from just the background of Enkidu in general. You know, Enkidu was a figure that was created to quell Gil back in his myth, but he was a figure of nature, and that's why it would make the most sense that if the guy was trying to summon an actual deity and try to use a beast of nature as the catalyst, that catalyst would bring forth something like Enkidu. Except in his case, he got really unlucky because he created something so great that the war decided that it was more appropriate for the battle than he was. So he tries to get away, and in common greedy Magus fashion, he says, I'm gonna come back and get revenge on them all, and then he turns around and gets his throat slit by Faldeus. I was like, man, this dude just guts everybody. Still got to get into Faldeus and his servant. That's yet to come.
Faldeus.
Yeah, the key
He's always there with
out.
the guns.
They still haven't given us a date yet. We're waiting that. Again,
oh, we're still waiting right now. It's about to happen.
The
date is today.
They just
the 23rd.
dropped the new trailer on the website. That was fire. They got cameos for Sigma. I got a whole video covering him.
Wait, is he gonna spoil? I don't want to hear nothing.
Between Gil and Enkidu was just gorgeous. The dialogue was fire. The music was hidden. All the music is hidden, to be honest.
The music was one of the best parts, if not the best part about it.
Powers in terms of impact, in terms of scale. You see Gilgamesh literally breaking space with his Aya. In that fight particular, they were summoning thousands of weapons. That's why you saw so many portals on his side, and then the same for Enkidu on the counter. You see their powers peeking out of the side of Earth. You see Enkidu literally transform into an extension of Earth itself. You see them both showing off their ability to fly, and then you see the huge crater that they leave behind,
and the glass crack.
Were really just playing around, like they didn't even get started all the way. I will admit that since they were short on time, the fight did feel really short-lived in comparison to reading it, either the manga or the novel. It just felt like it came and it went. It almost felt like watching the trailer. It went so fast.
You know what? That's a fact. It was really fast.
And I already know the context, so I'm not really tripping. But yeah, I would have liked for them to spend more time on that. But I know that they're just trying to get through everything and not make it seem so huddled up. And that was the point of the fight anyway. It wasn't supposed to be an all-out battle. It was supposed to be.
It was just a greeting.
Just them reuniting, more like a
fist
bump.
Like a little fist bump. Hey, what's up, man? Long time no see.
Everything that you might have thought about Fate, if you have watched it, you can just throw that out the window. This Grail War is all over the place. Things that you may have thought about Gilgamesh. Oh, this Gilgamesh is the rude and greedy king. But you'll see that the way that he treats Tine is completely different from the way that he treats Tokiomi. And we've done a whole video covering that. It's all about
I'm actually already noticing it.
Summoning
100%.
and who he's summoned with. He actually really likes Tine, and they offer a lot of good dialogue between each other too. There's so many things to look forward to, I can't even keep count. Just know that for all the seasonal anime watchers, and this is something that I thought was hilarious, that I said to myself while watching this, I was like, man, this almost makes me want to watch anime again. Almost. Just know that whatever season they decide to air this in, this will be the best show of that season. I guarantee you. How much you want to bet? Put your money up. How much you want to bet?
Okay, well,
everything. Type Moon fans eating as always.
That was everything about Fate. Great video, 10 out of 10. I'm off to the live stream, dude. Give me the episode right now. I've been waiting for the past freaking 4 hours now. But yeah, by the time you see this, the episode is already out. I'll see you on Patreon. Bye-bye.